One of the principles of the Charter for Responsible Debate is that we have an informed debate. But what do we mean by an informed debate? One of the ideas that I want to introduce to you today is that of collective intelligence. I think that one of the things that responsible debate should be based on is the notion that bringing together facts, data, information, opinions, and lived experience helps us to make better decisions about the world. So when we have to come together to make a decision, we should try and seek as much diversity in the facts, in the opinions, in what it is that we're pulling together in order to make that decision. So that means you don't want to make the decision based on your immediate reaction, but you want to think about these decisions. And of course, there are two separate types of decisions you want to make. If you see a fast car coming at you, you don't have to analyze the data about whether or not it's going to do you damage. You just need to get out of the way of it. But what we're talking about here are not those rapid decisions that you need to make, but these deep decisions that we need to think about together. So it's important to distinguish between those two types of decisions. And it's important that we prevent ourselves from using that sort of reasoning that we use to get out of the way of a speeding car in order to make decisions about things that are of much more importance. So that's one of the things that I think is really important, that we don't rely on our immediate decision-making faculties, but that we step out of that system and into the system of really thinking in depth about what information we have, what other people's opinions are, and how we can put those into a mix to make a perfect blend decision. We need to move away from using our immediate, rapid decision-making processes, but what we do need to do is to look at the ways in which we can distinguish facts from opinions. So there's a second set of things here, which is that some things can be said to be untrue. To take a very basic example, we can most of the time tell whether it's raining outside, and in Scotland the answer is that it almost certainly is raining outside. But we can tell whether or not it's raining, and of course there are some edge cases here, but let's just assume that it's raining heavily. So that's not something that we need to debate. That's a fact that we can go and experience, that we can research, that we can identify. We can say, yes, it is raining. We need to distinguish facts then from opinions, because whether or not it's raining, that only informs the decision that we're going to make together about whether to go out in the rain. So for some people, they won't want to get wet. For other people, they want to do things outside where they can't help getting wet. And we need to, again, separate the fact from the opinion. And it's not much good to debate the fact because it's a fact, but we need to focus very much on the opinions that people have about those facts. So building those opinions into a system of thought allows us to be really rigorous about the way in which we make decisions. What we need to do is develop those skills into deciding whether or not something's a fact. And of course, the example of whether it's raining or not is an easy one. So we need to look at what external sources we can rely on to understand whether something is a fact or not. We need to look at where it is that we've sourced a fact. Have we sourced it from a reliable source or from an unreliable source? Have we just heard it somewhere, or have we got somewhere that we can refer to and say, look, it says here that this is the case and this is a reputable source? So we have to learn how to go out to understand what reputable information is and how that information has been arrived at. And then we need to put that into a process. And again, we need to understand that sometimes there are things that people believe to be facts, but that aren't facts. And they believe those things in all sincerity. It's not that this is something they've made up. It's not that it's something that they've understood incorrectly. It's something that they've maybe misheard from somebody else, or they believe it to be true when in fact it isn't. And we can all think of times when we've made that sort of mistake. There's a second category, what we call disinformation. So the first category is misinformation. It's something that you believe to be true but isn't, in good faith. And then there are people who are saying things that are untrue, that they know to be untrue, for the reason of shaping a debate in their own favour. And we have to be very careful about that, because that's the sort of thing that can really do damage to our decision making. So again, finding those tools, finding those research tools, finding the ways to be really rigorous about understanding whether something is or is not true is of absolutely vital importance. The worksheet will help you to do this. Really important that you go out and get an understanding of how to be really rigorous about being informed and being true to the reality. It's important to think about where opinions come from. So there are some things that we can say to be true or untrue. Opinions aren't true or untrue. They're things that are based in our own lived experience, in the way in which we see the world, in the way in which we want to go about things. To take the example of going out in the rain, my opinion might be that I really want to go and take some exercise, and I'm prepared to get wet in order to do that. But other people might not want to do that. They may not want to get wet for all sorts of reasons. Now, both of those positions are correct. There's nothing to say that my position is right and I should compel other people to do what I want to do, nor that they should compel me. And we need to understand that, and we need to respect other people's positions. And very often people's positions will come from who they are as people. It'll come from the bodies that they live in. So are they disabled? Do they have a different experience of the world to us? And that's a really important thing to think really in depth about. It's absolutely vital that we think about other people's experience, that we put ourselves in their shoes, to see ourselves as others see us, is an absolutely vital element of having an informed debate. And we need to think about the ways in which we might not understand other people's opinions. So we take into account people who aren't normally in our eye line. We need to think about people who have a lived experience that's different to ours in order to understand the impact of our decisions on them and the decisions that we make together. And one other thing that I think is really important here is that while sometimes we can find a compromise and everybody can be happy, we might decide not to do something together. So you might stay inside, I might go outside. But sometimes we're going to have to do things together. And this is really important for issues that face us as a planet. So things like climate change require us to act together. We can't just say, I'll do what I want and you do what you want. We need to act together. And when we're doing those things, it's really important that we understand when somebody else has made a concession, and that we recognise that, we thank them, and that we remember that they've made a concession and take that into account in future decisions that relate to those people. So I think it's really important that we think about where information comes from, what the provenance of that information is, what is leading people to make decisions in a particular way, and how it is that we can be really careful about examining the way in which we ourselves make decisions.